Docker can run dozens of apps side by side, each thinking it's the only one in the system without using up all your resources. How is this possible? Isn't virtualization supposed to be resource intensive? Well, here is the secret. Docker containers are simply Linux processes. Unlike traditional virtualization, where we need to run a whole guest kernel, guest OS with all the bells and whistles, with containers, we simply package the binaries and libraries and we run them as an isolated process. But how is it possible to isolate a process? Well, there's this cool Linux capability called namespaces. Namespaces are basically a kernel feature that isolate a process or a group of processes across different dimensions. So we can isolate within a mount namespace, and that's basically the file system. So processes within the same namespace can write to files and change files, and this is only visible to processes within that same namespace. The other processes in the system don't see the changes. There is a process ID namespace in which you only see processes within the same namespace. There is a network namespace, and so on and so forth. That's the first piece of the puzzle. The other required feature to have containers is the ability to limit the resource usage. Imagine if you had a misbehaving container, it could run amok and hog up all your system's resources. And so this is where cgroups come in. Cgroups are basically a way to limit the resource usage of a group of processes. So you can say how much memory that process is allowed to use, how much CPU, how much disk. And so when we combine cgroups, which limit the resource usage, with namespaces, which isolate a process across different dimensions, such as the file system, the networking, the PID, and so on and so forth, we obtain a well-isolated, limited process that we can call a container. So I have the terminal here that's accessing a Ubuntu box, and I have Docker installed, and I'm gonna run an Alpine Docker container. So what this command is going to do, it's going to start a Docker container based off the Alpine Docker image, which is tagged with the latest tag, and I'm going to run the command sh, basically a shell. So before doing that, let's take a look at the OS release file, and we can see that we are indeed running on top of a Ubuntu file system. If I run the Alpine Docker container with sh, and I read the same file, it'll be different. They actually Alpine Linux. We copied all the file system from an Alpine image, and we are running on top of it. So this process I'm running is actually a process running on top of my Ubuntu machine, but it's isolated across namespaces. So for PS, I only see PS1, which is the sh command that I run. So it's running in its own namespace ID. And it's running also in its own MNT namespace, mount namespace, meaning it's only seeing its own file system. So if I modify something, I write a file to the TMP namespace, I can read it here. But if I exit, go back to my Ubuntu machine, and I try to read it again, well, there is nothing. And so the container is simply a process that's isolated across these different namespaces. And the way we can see that for sure is that if I run this, so I'm running a sleep command, and then instead of using the IT flag, because IT is for interactive, run it as a daemon, meaning in the background. So you can see that it's indeed running in the background. There you go. It's the gracious mayor. I love how Docker gives you these cool names for your containers when you don't name them. And so if I run ps faux, and this basically will give me a list of all the processes with the command, and I grep for sleep, I will see that I have indeed a process running the sleep command, and that's my Docker container, which is running as a child to the Docker daemon process. So this is simply running an image. As we said, it's simply a bundle of binaries and files with some options such as environment variables, which command we want to run. All this is bundled. We download it, and then within that bundle, we have the specification that all the information needed to run it as an isolated process. So let's take a look at how it's packaged under the hood. So there is this cool command called scope PO, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And we can use it to copy the image from the Docker Hub. So images are stored in registries, in repositories. And so when you package an image, you can push it to a registry and then you can pull it from someplace else or somebody else can pull it and they can run it. And that's the whole added value of containers and images is that you bundle things together and you're sure that when you pull it and try to run it, it will run the same way. So I'm going to copy the image. With Scopio, you can copy images between registries from local to remote, from remote to local. You can do all types of combination. So I'm going to copy the Alpine image from the remote Docker Hub registry to my local file system. And OCI stands for Open Container Initiative. And it's basically the standard that governs how images in containers should be. And it was started by Docker, but it was an initiative to ensure that all container and image providers follow the same standard, and so everything is interoperable. So if I have a Podman image, I can run it with Docker and vice versa, and they all follow this OCI format. Basically, it's a standard, very much like HTTP is used to communicate between browsers and web servers. So if I do that, we can see that we have our image within this Alpine folder. And if we look at it, we have this OCI layout, and that's basically just the image layout version. And then we have blobs, and blobs are just files identified by their hash. So the OCI spec is very big on digests and hashes, which basically allow us to make sure that the file, when we download the file, we hash it and we compare it to its hash to make sure that it was not corrupted or tampered with. But it's also very useful for caching. So when you have the hash of a file, when you can use that hash to mark it in the cache, and when you encounter it in the future, you know whether you have it locally or not. So let's take a look at that index file. It's JSON, so let's give JQ a go. And you can see that it has a list of manifests. So within a single OCI bundle, we can have multiple images. So we can have multiple image versions depending on tags, but you can also have within the same tags, within the same image version, multiple manifests for different platforms. So you can have for ARM, for x86, and so on. So if this digest, this manifest, tells us that it's stored in this blob. So if we go to the blobs folder and look at 24, the file whose hash is this, we can see the manifest of the image. And it has two key informations, which are the config, and that's actually the config of the image, and the layers. So the image is basically a list of layers. So when you combine these layers together, you get the file system that the container is gonna run on. And so they are compressed layers, and then when you download the image, you decompress the layers and you merge them together. And they are basically additive, so you merge the layers together to get the final file system. The config is all the options needed to run the container. So if I look at blobs again, and then 17, that's the config. Let's do a nice JQ. We can see all the options that are needed by the container to run. So we have environment variables, we have the actual command that we want to run, so it's sh by default. Then you have the history. So we have a Docker history command. So if we run Docker history Alpine, we can see the history of how an image was built, and that is stored within the image format here. And rootfs is basically the rootfs of the container, and this array of diff IDs is the hashes of the decompressed layers. So when we have the image layers here, this is the hash of the compressed layers. We need to decompress them and then merge them. And this diff IDs is basically an extra layer of security to make sure that the decompressed layers are equal to what we were expecting. So that's basically a security check. And then so we merge them together and we get the container. And there's actually a nice command called umochi, which allows us to extract a container from Unpack. Basically, the command is called from an OCI image. And let's run it. I think we need to be one layer up. And here we have this Alpine runtime folder that's have been created. And that's basically the runtime bundle. The runtime bundle is basically the container. So if you provide that bundle to Docker or to run or to any runtime implementation that's aware of the OCA format, it should be able to spin up a container. So if we look at it, we see the rootfs. That's actually the file system of the container. And then we'll see the config, which has the different config versions needed by the container to run. So this is very much like the output of the Docker inspect command. Environment variables, arguments, working directory, all that fun stuff. And so the official implementation of the OCI specification is something called runc. So we can take a look at it here. And so runc is basically a CLI tool for spawning and running containers according to the OCI specification. So if we give it a runtime bundle, it can run it. And actually the Docker engine uses runc under the hood. So let's do just that. Let's use runc to run our image. And it's rather simple. There is no need for daemon or engine. No, we need to do one level up. There you go. And so we are inside our container. And actually, if I write something to the TMP folder, then we exit the container and we go back to the runtime bundle and look at rootfs tmp, we see the file we just created, which is pretty cool. So we can take this runtime bundle after the modifications and repackage it, and we'll have basically a new image. And so that's how you basically build an image. So you have the runtime bundle, then you make changes to the file system. You either install packages or run commands or build something or compile another thing, and then you repackage it. And that's the history we see in the Docker manifest.